team and guys are resting and in and out of the lineups, and then everybody's just looking for the playoffs. I feel like it makes things boring, from my opinion on that. So that'll close us out here for segment 1 on the show. Time to pay some bills. When we come back, it's Talkworthy time. We'll talk about the NFL Combine, all the talk about Kyler Murray. He seemed to hit the right height. Now he might be the number 1 pick in the draft. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Nick Foles. It looks like the Jaguars are going to make him a big-time contract offer. Can he rescue Jacksonville? Bryce Harper signed a mammoth deal, and we got NASCAR's new package at Vegas. I'll get Eric's thoughts on that when we come back. Well, we couldn't do a podcast if we didn't talk about a little NFL, and coming off the NFL Combine in Indy this past week, all the talk was Kyler Murray, and really it started on day 1 when he measured in at 5'10" and 1/8 or 1/10, but basically he was over 5'10", and that seems to be the magic number. And all of a sudden, it was getting reported that it's a done deal that the Cardinals will take him with the number 1 pick in this upcoming draft. And they look like maybe they're going to ship Josh Rosen out of town. So, Eric, Kyler Murray, we talked about him in the Heisman talk, that this guy had a phenomenal season. He seems to be the guy that's just got he looks like a video game. He looks like back in the college days when we're playing Madden, just getting the guy with 99 speed and just getting him on the outside and just cutting him loose. That feels like Kyler Murray. But the fact that this guy has an arm as well and can get the ball down the field. So with bringing in Cliff Kingsbury to this Cardinals team, Eric, that has been devoid of talent and been the dinosaurs of the NFL with a crappy roster, to say the least, to keep it clean on this show. They've just had a horrible roster. They really have no face of this team outside of Larry Fitzgerald. Is this the right move to go after Kyler Murray with the number 1 pick in this draft?
If you believe in it, then it's the right move. I don't really know if it's going to pay off, but I don't know if Josh Rosen's going to pay off long-term either. We said months ago that when Kingsbury took the job, that this was sort of a story that was percolating. It was out there that maybe he had a thing for Kyler Murray. So this would not shock me at all. It would also allow Kingsbury to just make it what he wants it to be moving forward from day 1 with this Arizona Cardinals team, sort of give it a new identity. I know Josh Rosen's young. I know he just got there. But things didn't go that well last year. You're going to have Fitzgerald out the door at some point. And so there's going to be a rebuilding process here. And if you believe that Kyler Murray is a better franchise quarterback long-term than Josh Rosen, then I think it's a move that they're willing to make at this point. And who knows what's going to happen with David Johnson in the backfield. It seemed like last year was a big downtick for him. I know he was dealing with those injuries and also playing behind a line that just wasn't very good. So maybe he bounces back, but you're going to need additional weapons. You're going to need a tight end. You're going to need additional wide receivers. And if Kyler Murray is the guy that you feel can lead that out of the backfield behind center, then make the move and go for it.
Yeah, if you're going to go all in on Kingsbury, feels like you have to go all in and get him the quarterback that's going to make his system work there. And if Kyler Murray is more of that guy than Josh Rosen is. And I think this is what we've talked about a lot with the NFL redoing how their draft works and how the rookie scale is. It gives you this flexibility that, okay, if you miss on a quarterback in the first round, it's not death to the franchise anymore. You just click the reboot button and you try it again. I don't even think it's determined if Josh Rosen is the right guy or not. This Arizona team, Eric, they put nothing around him. You have Fitzgerald out there. You're putting a lot on Christian Kirk as your wide receiver. Your tight end position is weak at best, and you have a terrible offensive line for a pocket passer that you just got killed. I think 45 sacks he took, and I might be under the number on that off the top of my head, but he got beat up. He had a lot of injuries that he dealt with, and he tried to play through. They're switching offensive coordinators in the middle of the year when they got rid of McCoy, or they basically promote Byron Leftwich at that point, and then they get rid of the coach at the end of the year. So you're not really being fair to a rookie quarterback at that point when you put no roster around him at all. Hell, at least Baker Mayfield, when he went to Cleveland, they had a lot of issues with the coaching staff, but at least he had talent around him. At the running back position, he had talent. He had a good offensive line, and he had weapons on the outside as well. And he had a good tight end. Rosen didn't have any of that. So I think it's a little bit unfair for a guy like Josh Rosen to get kind of thrown under the bus by people when I don't really think he's been in a good situation. So for him, you start to wonder, what is the trade value? Are they looking for a back end of the first round pick? Are they going to be satisfied with a high second for him? Did Rosen lose a lot of value? What is his value? I think that's going to be what shakes out here, because as a Bronco fan, seeing what we gave up to go get Flacco, I wish we could just press the reset button on that deal, and I'd much rather see them spend a 2 on Rosen to see if he works out versus a Flacco that I've basically, I think we've seen the best of him, and now he's getting a chunk of change, and he's nothing but a bridge quarterback. I would much rather take a chance on a guy like Rosen, throw him in there, see if he's the guy. If he's not, you go into 2 upcoming drafts where there is more talent at the quarterback position. So, everybody's just talked about Kyler Murray, but I think Josh Rosen's a guy, Eric, that a team could get for a pretty good bargain at this point. I mean, they're going to get him for what, 50 cents on the dollar, 75 cents on the dollar at most when it comes to his stock, where he went last year versus what they're going to get. But I do think at this point, if you're going to bring in Kingsbury, you're going to make that radical of a move at your head coach position, get him the guy that he feels like he can be successful with. All right, Eric, well, let's talk about a quarterback situation a little bit closer to your heart. I know you were all in on the Carson Wentz train, but Nick Foles then has to go somewhere else. And it looks like the talk coming out of the combine was Jacksonville will be that place that they're set to make him an offer when the new league year kicks in on March 13th, and see if they can bring him to Jacksonville to fix this team. So you've seen a lot of Nick Foles, but you've seen a lot of him in moments where he's come in as the backup. Not a lot of expectations on him, and he's really thrived with this team. But it wasn't that long ago, this guy didn't even know if he wanted to play in the NFL. He was struggling immensely. So when you look at Nick Foles going to Jacksonville, a team they've had their own issues, let's face it, a lot of mouthy people on the defensive side of the ball and not seemingly a lot of talent on the offensive side. Can Nick Foles fix this Jacksonville team, Eric? Because it feels like they have a lot of talent in an AFC that outside the Patriots and the Chiefs, it's kind of wide open.
The one thing I think he's got going for him now is that he's got a different level of experience especially than a Blake Bortles has, right? But he also has a rapport with his teammates that I think is highly respected. And so I think the changeover for Jacksonville might be a very good thing for their locker room. Nick Foles certainly struggled in St. Louis. He never caught on in Kansas City. With Philadelphia, he came in as a backup, did a wonderful, wonderful job. I mean, how could you ask for anything more, getting them through the playoffs and then exceeding expectations by getting to a Super Bowl and then going on to win that Super Bowl? Couldn't ask for anything more from a backup quarterback, proving that he's still eligible and able and capable to play as a starter in this league. So now you kind of have this second chance for Nick Foles, right? And I think it's a good story for the NFL, and I really hope it works out for him, even just as a person. He's, again, supposedly a really great guy. A lot of the teammates love him. And so I think he's just going to bring a different energy and a different respect level to that Jacksonville locker room. And he can say, look, I am a Super Bowl MVP. I don't think he would actually say it that way, because I think he's a much more humble guy than that. But he's going to be coming in to lead that team, again, from behind center, giving them something that I've got an experience level that Blake Bortles just doesn't have. And so if I keep my calm, I keep my composure, I might be able to deliver the football on a more consistent basis than what you've had before. And no, I'm not going to rush for 80 yards in a game like Blake Bortles does, but I'm also capable of throwing for 450 yards too. And so I don't feel like you're really giving that much up by getting rid of Bortles and bringing in a guy like Nick Foles. The biggest thing I have for this question, Justin, really has nothing to do with Nick Foles at all, but it's the NFL and their policies and this whole thing about the league year starts on March 6th and then you can't sign free agents until March 13th. And yet somehow everybody knows that Nick Foles is going to Jacksonville. It's just crazy how all of these leagues, and it's not just the NFL, it's the NBA, it's the Major League Baseball. And again, it's not a topic for discussion really. It's just an observation how crazy it is. We've talked about LeBron James and these backroom dealings. I mean, I just think it's going on all the time. Yeah, the league year hasn't started yet, and somehow everybody knows that Nick Foles is going to the Jaguars.
Wait, is he represented by Clutch?
Maybe.
Is he a Clutch guy? I don't know. I think some of it's people connecting the dots. And then I do think it's look, the tampering stuff takes place all the time. I mean, it used to be the fact even before they had that, 3-day window before you could actually sign guys where you could negotiate. It used to be that it would be like 12 o'clock midnight and at 12:01, ESPN's reporting so-and-so signed here. And it's like, wow, they got a deal done in 30 seconds. That is unbelievable negotiation by someone. So everybody knows that stuff takes place. I actually thought with Nick Foles, you were going to say he has the best nickname in the NFL going for him. But I think for the fact that this Jacksonville team I think that they have the talent on this team to be good. And offensively, they've just been inept. And that has led to a lot of their problems with the defense losing their mind because they feel like they play good enough to keep this team in games. And then, frankly, they just fall apart. Jacksonville's got some cap issues and definitely going to have to figure out how to work the Bortles deal if they do get Foles. But if I'm Jacksonville, I think the one thing that I would be thinking about if the Giants were open for it is trying to make a move for Beckham. It's something that is, when I think about this team, what they need a dynamic wide receiver that can get down the field and open things up. And Nick Foles has the arm for that. And we saw him show it off and constantly get Alshon Jeffrey the ball down the field. And I feel like that's the guy that if I was in that front office, Coughlin's got his ties to the Giants. Again, they've got some cap issues they'd have to work with. But if we're just playing sort of fantasy land here, that's the guy that I think this team really needs because they need a wide receiver on this team that can make plays. I feel like they've got a bunch of mediocre guys and they had a below average quarterback, and that's a disaster. They've got a good running back. So they've got it. I think when Fournette is right and has his head screwed on right, he's better than any running back that the Eagles had during Foles' run there. But they definitely don't have the weapons on the outside, and they don't have a tight end like they had in Ertz. So I think there's some things that concern me because Foles played so well in that Eagles system. Now you're going to put him into a different system with maybe not as much talent around him as this roster stands. And that sort of does concern me because it feels like Foles is a guy that has to be in a system that he's extremely comfortable with talent around him to be successful. That's the only thing, Eric, that I see that really concerns me with him going there. All right, well, let's keep it rolling. Let's go to Major League Baseball. Last week on the show, we wanted to talk a little bit of baseball, but we felt like, well, we really don't know what in the world Bryce Harper is doing because it felt like he really didn't want to sign with Philly or that he was using the Giants and potentially the Dodgers to sort of jack the price up on Philly. I don't know if he was trying to get more money out of him, Eric, but he's certainly got more years because Bryce Harper signed a 13-year deal worth $330 million. I think at the end of his contract, he just goes on Medicare. But these deals have not worked well. At least for his deal, the annual salary will be down some from what we've seen some of these other deals. But 13 years, Eric, my God, the man's halfway to a mortgage on a house. So, Eric, as a baseball guy, I know you sort of follow the Phillies. You're not really a fan of them, but obviously we have ties to that area. Do you feel like at the end of the day, this deal is going to be something that is looked on as something that was positive for the franchise, or is this going to be an abject failure at the end of the day?
I've never seen a business model where you pay exorbitantly up front for the promise of 2 or 3 or 4 good years. That's what Major League Baseball is in, though. That's what the Padres just paid for Manny Machado. That's what the Rockies just paid for Arano. That's what this team, the Phillies, just paid for Harper. And it's what we've seen in the past with Seattle and Cano and, Hamilton to the Rangers. And of course, A-Rod's monster deal years ago with the Yankees. It's just repeated time and time again where they're willing to shell out money for over a decade to these players when they're geriatric age for the hope of what they might bring in the short term. It is awful. It is a terrible business model. It's one of the things I absolutely can't stand about Major League Baseball. You have stars getting guaranteed money and they don't matter. Once they get into their mid to late 30s, they're not stars anymore. And that's what hamstrings these Major League Baseball owners. That's what hamstrings these teams. It's what makes them irrelevant 5 years, 6 years, 10 years down the road. I mean, where are the Rangers? Where are the Mariners? Where are these teams that have paid for these guys? The Angels with Pujols, they didn't get that value out of those guys, not even close. I think it's a terrible business model. I just don't understand it at all. The crazy thing for me, I understand it's a free market. You get what you can get. There's nothing illegal. There's nothing unethical about it. But Darren Ravel had this on his Twitter site. Every time that Bryce Harper steps to home plate based on career averages, this year he's going to make $44,500 every time he steps foot in the batter's box.
That's all?
That's all. The median household income in Philadelphia is $41,000. So I was talking to my dad over breakfast last weekend, and I said, here's the thing. You've got a fan potentially sitting in the stands who's just shelled out money for tickets, $8 hot dogs, $20,000 beers. Then you're going to buy a jersey. Then you're going to buy other things at home, maybe a cable package or whatever. and you're sitting there in the stands and that guy comes to bat 4 times in a game and he's out earned you 4 times over in the